Ben Gauntlet is the Disability Discrimination Commissioner. Time now for my political panel. Today it's Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor MP Anne Ali. Welcome to both of you. And Tim, starting off with today's announcement out of Victoria, essentially a pretty significant concession really from the Victorian health authorities with advice to the government that they can't get to zero, that it's about living with the virus and some roadmap about where they need to get to. Are you satisfied by the changes that have been announced?
Well, I think like all Victorians, I'm not necessarily satisfied. Many of us have lived very long periods in lockdowns, but I think we need to accept the admission from the state government. And I welcome it, the honesty that under the Delta variant, you're engaging in denialism if you think you can keep it out forever. And of course, you're just going to be able to stop it spread and get back to COVID zero. And I think this is a reflection from the Victorian government, as the New South Wales government has done, is shown a greater maturity about the discussion that we've only ever defeated one virus and then only one strain of it in human history, and that we're going to have to come to a COVID normal, which involves, unfortunately, living with the virus. Now, the question is whether some of the other state premiers reach that same level of maturity and actually make sure they engage with the public on an honest basis and say that lockdowns in perpetuity and, of course, other measures are not sustainable. I
just want to challenge you on that, because you say it's about maturity. Isn't it really just about reality? So in Queensland, where it's been COVID zero and the truck driver has now tested positive, but beyond that it's been COVID zero, why would they have to concede that they want to live with the virus when they've managed not to live with the virus?
Well, these are only temporary states of affairs. If anybody thinks that some of these states are going to be able to keep COVID-19 and its variants outside of their jurisdiction forever, then they have taken departure from reality. And this isn't because any of us want to live with it. It's just a reality that you can't keep a virus out forever. We don't keep the flu out every season. And if we could, of course we would. But we recognise that there are significant consequences from the decisions that we made, the obligations that be required. And of course, where we can buy ourselves time, which is what Australia has pursued. It's a strategy of buying ourselves time to get the population vaccinated, to build up the health system to respond to it. But I don't think anybody, if they were being honest, mature, or, as you put it, real with the public, would ever say that they were going to live free of the virus forever.
And Ali, is that actually true? You can't live with the virus. You can't live without the virus forever, given it's everywhere, including the two biggest states in the country, that the other states, including the one you're in, needs to take it seriously.
Well, thanks, Patricia. It's great to be coming to you from my cave in Western Australia. Look, like Tim said, nobody wants to be in lockdown forever. And Labor, as you interviewed Jim Chalmers earlier, and Labor, of course, is supportive of the national plan, bearing in mind the caveat that the national plan is based on modelling that makes a number of assumptions, including assumptions about the number of community cases of COVID before we get to a certain level of vaccinations, and whether or not it's safe to open up at that level of vaccinations. I think also people who are asking for the lockdowns to end and for states to open up, including people from the Morrison government. I know that Michaelia Cash is now saying that Clive Palmer, you're backing in Clive Palmer once again, as did Christian Porter, the previous Attorney General. I think that those people need to be prepared for the consequences of what that means to accept COVID in the community. Now, I've got one son who lives in Melbourne and another one who lives in Sydney. Yes, I would love to see them. I would love to be able to hold my sons again and give them a hug and celebrate their birthdays. I've got one son who's planning to get married next March. I'm hoping that I can be able to celebrate with him. But I'm not prepared to put my elderly mother, or anybody's elderly mother or elderly father for that matter, at risk in order to do that.
OK, just still staying with you if I can, Anne Ali, chief executives from 80 companies which employ almost 1 million people have issued an open letter calling on state premiers to stay the course on the national reopening plan. You just set up a scenario there, but these leaders say that they need the reopening internally, particularly to let their businesses run. What's your response to them?
Oh, I agree with them. We do need to have a reopening. And I think you might recall, Patricia, several weeks ago on this program, I said that we needed to pivot, that the time for measuring the success against COVID based on how many lockdowns we have or how long those lockdowns are, we need to start pivoting to it being about vaccine rollout. So I agree with them, and we do have to stick to a national plan. But there are caveats to that. And the caveat to that is that the national plan is based on modelling that assumes a lower level of cases, not zero cases, but a lower number of cases in the community. So I think that, you know, we can do two things at once. We can work towards a national plan and opening up, but at the same time, those states where COVID has blown out of control, to be honest, like New South Wales, needs to bring the numbers down, but we also need to have those other factors in place. National quarantine facility, robust and effective contact tracing in order for the national plan to work.
Tim Wilson, Daniel Andrews says the committee of medical experts is looking at reducing the gap between AstraZeneca doses. Do you think that should happen to try and really accelerate that rollout, particularly in Victoria?
Well, I'll let that decision be made by the medical experts, but around the distance between the doses. But I really do welcome, again, you know, and I give him applause for this, the maturity at which Dan Andrews today has finally accepted the value of the AstraZeneca vaccine, encouraging Australians to go out and Victorians to go out and get the vaccine. It's safe, it's effective, it's been approved by our regulators, and it is a vaccine that Australians can rely on. I just wish some of the other state premiers and their health officers, particularly in Queensland, did the same thing, because so long as people demonise that critical vaccine, one that's made in Australia, it's made in Australia and made by your fellow citizens for your safety. So long as you have the CHO in Brisbane or Queensland and, of course, their Premier deriding it and discouraging people from getting it, it's going to continue to delay the vaccine rollout. And it's incredibly disappointing. So I'm very happy to see the Victorian government look at how we can get it out further.
Yeah, just on that issue of opening up, Scott Morrison said yesterday that each state was at a different point, but Karen Andrews just spoke a little earlier in the last hour, and she says that the federal government is of the view that Queensland should be open. Is that right? Is the federal government's position that Queensland should be open now?
Well, I didn't hear those remarks, but I mean, Queensland is open, of course. The question is whether the borders should open. And of course, they're more than entitled to keep their borders shut at this time. But what has been said by some ministers today and raises broader questions is the test around whether borders can be closed is based on the risk profile. Of course, as the vaccine rate goes up, the proportional argument to keep borders closed goes down. And we want, we all want, and I'm sure Anne wants it as well, a situation where people can move around the country freely, consistent with how our country's supposed to run, where people have that armoury of a vaccine so they can protect themselves against COVID-19, Alpha, Delta variants or any other future variants, and that we make sure we get back to a sense of normalcy so young Australians can go through rites of passage, get back to school, get their first job. Older Australians can enjoy their sunset years, and every Australian can connect with loved ones, friends and family and enjoy life as it's supposed to be.
And Ali, you mentioned Michaelia Cash, who's of course also from WA like you, but actually the Treasurer, who I'm about to speak to any moment now, but he says today there will be no High Court challenge that the federal government supports. Do you accept that the federal government isn't about to challenge any state in the High Court?
Well, given the government's lack of consistency in their messaging across various things, I mean, you just mentioned there, Scott Morrison saying one thing, Karen Andrews saying another thing. That's been pretty much the pattern coming out of this government. I'm going to look at what I've got in front of me, and what I've got in front of me is Michaelia Cash saying that Clive Palmer, backing in Clive Palmer, just as Christian Porter did before, basically giving him endorsement to continue what he's doing. I don't know why these WA Attorney Generals continue to fail to read the room in WA. The fact is that West Australians want Clive Palmer to stop and to go away. Michaelia Cash seems to want him to continue.
All right, we're out of time, and I think the Treasurer is about to join me. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
PK.
Liberal MP Tim Wilson
I'll go
there.
back to my cave now.
Okay, well, it looks like a nice cave, whatever you've got going on there. Labor MP Anne Ali as a compliment of her office, which I think looks pretty good. Good books there. Now, before we go, let's return to today's big